I'm gonna talk about Infected by Scott Sigler. A quick summary of the plot. The story revolves around Perry, on whose body some strange parasites start to grow. And we learn that these parasites cause people to go insane and very aggressive and paranoid and start killing people. And we see Perry fight with these parasites and slowly spiral downwards toward insanity. And we also see the CDC and Secret Service and police trying to get a grip on the situation and keep it out of the media. First criterion, main characters. The main character of this book is definitely Perry, and as main characters go, he is not really a bad main character. We see a lot of his inner life, of his reasons, his motives. We learn a bit about his past. We see the processes inside him while he fights with his triangle parasites and while he tries to cut and burn and somehow get them out of his body. And yes, the body horror is strong in this book. The problem is that basically all characters are Perry. All characters who get a word in sound exactly like Perry. And I moved to calling him bitch ass fuck because that's the feeling that this character gives you. That's if he were a Pokemon, that would be his name. He would be a bitch ass fuck. And it's the Perry is blue collar, but we have CIA agent who talks like this. We have the Dr. Margaret from the CDC who talks like that. Her gay colleague talks like that. Her boss talks like that. Everybody talks like that. They don't all behave like Perry. Margaret's inner life is distinct. If you just got to read a bit of her inner life, you'd know, okay, this is not Perry. But as soon as they open their mouths, it's Perry. And this was very annoying. And also the development of Perry started to go, it didn't get better with time. Meaning we see smooth development up to a certain point, and then it starts to go erratic. And it's like, okay, in the death throes of his moral inner self, there are some last gasps, some last grasps for his identity, but it's used. This is used in a way to make you think, okay, maybe things will turn out good, and he will be victorious, but then no, he's still insane still mad as a hatter. And the use of this rocky development, this uneven development, the use kills it for me. And That's why for character the book only gets 3 points. Second criterion, side characters. Well, as long as they keep their mouths shut, they are individuals and they do their own thing, but, and I covered this in the first criterion, as soon as they open their mouths, a little bitch ass fuck jumps out and they completely lose their individuality and their distinction. And it was just very frustrating and very annoying, and I don't know how this happened. Why? It's because it's everywhere. It's not just in a certain mood, it's everywhere that they sound the same, and that's why for the second criterion the book also gets only 3 points. Third criterion, relationships. If I want to be charitable, there are 3 relationships in this book. 1, Perry and the Triangles. 2, Perry and his friend Bill. And 3, Margaret and the CDC. But only the relationship between Perry and the Triangles is really shown in detail, and it's shown in very much detail, and how it develops while the triangles grow more and more sentient and get more and more of a hold over Perry. But it's just that it's a tug of war between Perry and the parasites. Perry and the Parasites. That would be a nice title. It's a tug of war. It's a back and forth, a grapple for power, and there doesn't come any nuance into this. And well, there's a moment at the end where he thinks, okay, I should do what the triangles say, even though I know they don't have my best interest at heart, but their drive for self-preservation will also preserve me. So yes, there is nuance, but it never really evolves. There's either Perry has the upper hand or the triangles have the upper hand. There's no middle ground. There are no compromises to be made, and yeah, that makes this very, very one-dimensional. And the relationship between Perry and Bill, we learn that yes, there was development in this relationship. They weren't born friends. And we learn what Bill means to Perry, but it's just hearsay. It's just told. It's not ever really shown, because they don't interact much during the plot. And yes, at the end they are not friends anymore, but that's not due to some real development in the relationship, but more blunt force trauma. Yes, and Margaret and the CDC, it's the same, basically the same thing as with Perry and the Parasites, because it's a great band name also. But it's the same. It's a tug of war, and in the end, Margaret gets the upper hand, and that's that. And things are. She gets her say. She has her resources, and yeah. And I know this is a plot-driven story, I know, but I like stories with relationships, and I think there could have been something else shown in this. I don't know how, but yeah, and that's why there are only 3 points for relationships. Criterion 4, conflict. As I mentioned before, there isn't that much different conflict in the story because there aren't that many relationships, and conflict requires relationships to happen. The conflict Perry versus triangles, or Perry versus parasites, is one-dimensional. Margaret's power struggle is not much to be had, but there's another conflict there, because Margaret not only struggles to have a say in this whole triangle thing, she's also looking for answers. Where did the triangles come from? How are victims? Why do people get ill? What happens what happens physiologically? How could there be a cure? Why do people lose themselves and turn violent under the influence of this parasite? And we see her work in her laboratory with her colleague, and there's a lot of technobabble there. Technobabble doesn't impress me that much. But we see her talk about things that don't require the mentioning of bitch ass fuck. And in these moments, she feels a lot more like an individual person. And it's very interesting how they try to find out what's going on. It's interesting to see the parasite from their perspective. And also they get to travel around to other crime scenes where other infected people have butchered their loved ones. And because we see Perry's struggle with the parasite, we can infer from what we find, or from what Margaret finds at these crime scenes, we can infer what happened there and what these people might have thought based on what we learn about their individual personality. And I liked that a lot. It created a lot of room for world building and for showing things outside of Perry and showing things that didn't require someone to say bitch ass fuck. And yeah, I liked that part of the book. I liked it a lot. It had this mystery vibe to it. It was one of the main sources of fun. And this is why, despite everything, for Criterion 4 conflicts, the book gets 5 points. Criterion 5, world building. I put the triangles, the parasites, under world building, even though they're a character, and I put them under world building because they are a character. I like this a lot because we see how they grow from a tiny seed that embeds itself in the host's body, how the biological processes start to work, the whole molecular machinery and all that. And we see things, the triangles have a point of view in the way that a point of view works in this story. Perry's point of view is not, we don't really look through Perry's eyes, but we hear Perry being talked about what Perry is feeling right now, talking about what Perry is doing now and why. And the same is for the triangles, what they are doing now, what their motives are now. And we follow this development from seed to mind destroying monster, and that was a lot of fun. And I found it's a very creative approach, very imaginative. I like that a lot. That the illness, the infection that we are up against isn't just some bacterium that just is there, but It has a perspective. And okay, once we learn what the triangles really are, it becomes kind of a no-brainer to give them a perspective. But I liked this point. I liked it a lot while I was reading it. I had a lot of fun with it. Also, the places are... I got a clear picture of Perry's apartment and its inevitable destruction. I got a clear picture of the apartment complex. I got even though that's more due to my ability to imagine shit, I guess, because it wasn't described very clearly, but he used Oberbegriffe. Very evocative words, small evocative words that say a lot with very few letters. And yeah, it worked for me. I had fun, so that's why I give 10 points. Criterion 6, choreography. Initially, I was very happy with the choreography. There are several places, several people who do things simultaneously. And so there had to be a lot of jumping. And these jumps, they were okay for me. They worked. Often if there's a lot of jumping, it takes you out of the story and it's annoying. But since we had a very much distance, a lot of distance between the reader and the characters, because there was this, we talk about the characters, we don't look through their eyes, we talk about them. This kept me at a distance, and so I was throughout the book I was in a kind of meta situation, so switching between points of view in scare quotes didn't feel that disruptive to my flow. Also, we did very short visits to these people and not that much happened, so it worked for me. Where it all broke down and what really I'm still confused as to how this could happen. The editor didn't see it. Why this? Because Bill comes to visit Perry, and he gets brutalized, very much so, by Perry. But the way this is described is, well, Perry thinks he wants to kill Bill. Bill thinks, oh no, he wants to kill me. Perry, I will kill you. Bill, no, please don't kill me. And Perry, I this liar, this snitch, he's an agent. And Bill, oh no, what is Perry thinking? What can I do? And it's jumping for short paragraphs, jumping back and forth, and there's this situation where Bill is still at the door and Perry is looking through a crack in the between door and thing, and the situation is described 4 or 5 times, because yeah, there's Bill and he's doing this, and there's Perry and he's thinking that, and oh no, it makes it so slow, and it was it really sucked. And then there was this other situation where you have come in, and we have Perry who is about to destroy his last triangles, and he wants to burn them, and then the policeman comes in closer, and Perry, I will burn my triangles, and the policeman comes closer, and Perry, oh yes, I will burn them, and the policeman comes closer, and Perry, oh, I will totally burn these fuckers, and the policeman comes closer, and Perry is like, yeah, I'm definitely going to burn them. And I got the feeling that the author tried to go for some cinematic narrational device where you have, quick cuts between the policeman and Perry, and in film this works, but in a book it's always paragraphs, and they slow down time. They don't show they don't show that these things happen simultaneously. They make things slow, and it was very annoying, and really I don't know. But everywhere else, and I'm not convinced that this is due to the author being competent, but that it's more of happenstance, because this, but for the rest of the book, that really it were just these two instances where it totally crashed and burned, and everywhere else in the book it was fine. It worked for me, so that's why I give 5 points here. Criterion 7, language. Well, I already mentioned that all characters sound the same when they talk. There's so much repetition. It really annoyed me, and it's not just that Perry keeps repeating something his father used to say, and over and over and over, and situation after situation after situation. And also descriptions. Perry's apartment is described by everyone who walks in, and it's described exactly the same way, verbatim, same words used. I wouldn't have a problem with repeated descriptions if they were colored by the person who looks at the thing, because that would be characterization, that would create mood, it would create insight into a character. But no, exactly the same words for the same things, and that was very annoying. And also the language is very simple. The author is one of those who keeps with the wisdom that sentences should be short and to the point. And yes, a second grader could read this book if it weren't too bloody and too cruel for children. But the problem is that the author wants to show a lot. He wants to describe a lot. And so you have very many, very short sentences. And it's not as bad when he can describe a scenery, the basic things you see. There he finds his words easily. But as soon as he has to describe what characters do, it really breaks down. There's this point where where Perry is removing a band-aid. Well, not really a band-aid, it's duct tape, but he uses it as a band-aid. And it's like, yeah, he scratched at the corner with his fingernails. He grabbed the corner with his thumb and finger. He pulled. It was painful. He pulled again. It was really, and it's, and there are other authors who do this. I mean, Stanislav Lem, who wrote Solaris, when he has to write about people and what they feel and think and do, his writing is not very good. As soon as he can talk about his fictitious history of science, he finds words and it all comes to life. It's really, and the same here. He can't find his words when he has to talk about people and their actions, but it's okay when he can just describe scenery. And yeah, this is why I give the book 3 points for this criterion. Criterion 8, personal touch. I already mentioned the triangles having personality. That was nice. The body horror aspect was very nice. The scenery also very nice. I enjoyed that. But, and I mentioned in my review of the Dark Days Club that the postscript of the author did a lot of good for how I gave my points for the criterion of personal touch. Scott Sigler's postscript, it would have been better if I hadn't read it, because it turns out that Perry's voice, that's everywhere, that's every character's voice, is, well, not surprisingly, I guess, but it's the author's voice. The postscript could have been written by Perry, and the good and the bad, it weighed each, so I give 5 points for this criterion. Criterion 9, DNF. There were some moments when I was about to not finish, where I was like, do I really want to? But then I decided not to, and this wasn't to the book's benefit. Because after the point where I was like, it all really went downhill. At this point, it wasn't that crassly obvious that all characters sound like Perry. It wasn't, the simplistic language hadn't yet started to get on my nerves that much. And the scene with Bill and Perry, the really badly choreographed scenes hadn't happened yet, and I would have given a much better points, better review, better evaluation if I had stopped reading then, but I didn't, and it was to the book's detriment, and this is why I give 0 points for this criterion 9. There could be negative points or points subtracted for this, but I don't subtract points because I finished the book, but it doesn't get any extra points because I'm not glad that I finished it. Criterion 10, fun. I had fun with this book. As I said, it went downhill after a certain point because of the cumulative effect of all the negative aspects. But then again, this book made me rejoice and push up a mental victory fist while I was reading the description of a person mutilating themselves. And that's an achievement. You don't get that very often, and yeah, that's why I give this book 5 points for fun, and yeah. So, all this leaves us with a final score of 42 points. And that's the same score that the Dark Days Club got. And I didn't notice it then. I will mention it now, 42. That's the answer to the question of the universe, life. Oh my god. I will mention it here. I didn't mention it then, but I will mention it here to keep me from having to give back my nerd card. 42 is the answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything else. And yeah, so just to keep my nerd card. yeah, there will be no glowing recommendation of this book after my, in spite of this low score, because the Dark Days Club, the premise, the things that could have been, it touched something in me. It touched my heart, and it got me emotionally involved. The things that could have been. This didn't happen with this book. It's not a bad book. I guess it's mediocre, and I guess people could have fun with it, but I don't really care. So yeah, that's my review. Goodbye and see you soon. I just recently found out that there are people who got triangles tattooed on their bodies with tentacles and stuff, and that tells me that there are people out there who really had a great deal of fun with these books and are really big fans. And yeah, I'm not, but I don't have to be, so that's that.